The levels of enlightenment, partial awakening, great awakening, and perfect awakening. Introduction. Enlightenment, or Bodhi, is the central aspiration of Buddhist practice. It signifies awakening from ignorance and delusion into the clarity of wisdom, freedom, and compassion. Yet, enlightenment is not a single, instantaneous event for most practitioners. Buddhist traditions, especially within Mahayana and Zen, describe multiple stages of awakening, each progressively deeper and more transformative. In East Asian Buddhism, a well-known classification distinguishes between 2-eng partial awakening, G-eng great awakening, and V-eng perfect or complete awakening. These stages highlight both the gradual and sudden aspects of enlightenment, mapping the pilgrim's journey from the first glimpse of truth to its full embodiment. This essay explores these levels in depth, analyzing their doctrinal roots, experiential significance, and implications for practice. It will also compare interpretations across different traditions, address the paradox of sudden versus gradual awakening, and examine how these stages can inspire modern practitioners navigating the complexities of contemporary life. 1. The context of awakening in Buddhism. 1.1. Awakening as liberation from ignorance teaches that ignorance of a deed lies at the root of suffering, dukkha. Enlightenment is the direct realization of reality as it truly is impermanent, anicca, non-self, anat, and interdependent, prodkati samutpada. This insight cuts through craving and attachment, liberating the mind. 1.2. Gradual versus sudden perspectives in Theravada traditions. Enlightenment is often described as a progressive path, culminating in the 4 stages of sainthood: stream enterer, once returner, non-returner, arahant. In Mahayana, particularly Zen, the emphasis is on sudden awakening, yet even here, there is acknowledgement of stages, refinements, and maturation. The threefold schema of 2-eng, G-eng, and V-eng reflects this nuanced balance. 2. 2-eng partial awakening. 2.1. Definition. 2-eng, literally small enlightenment, refers to the initial breakthrough of insight. It is a moment where delusion momentarily collapses, and the practitioner glimpses the nature of reality. This may occur in deep meditation, a Zen-con breakthrough, or a life-changing experience of impermanence. 2.2. Characteristics. Temporary. Clarity. The mind sees into its own emptiness or interdependence, but the realization is not yet stable. Transformative but incomplete. Old habits of thought quickly reassert themselves. Often sudden, Zen masters sometimes equate to eng with an initial satoriya flash of awakening. 2.3. Significance. Partial awakening is essential because it validates the Dharma experientially. A practitioner no longer relies solely on faith or intellectual understanding. They know from direct perception that freedom is real. However, 2-eng is vulnerable to inflation, as practitioners may mistake it for final enlightenment. Traditional teachers caution that this is only the beginning. 3. G-eng, great awakening. 3.1. Definition. Heng, great awakening represents a deeper, more stable realization. Here, awakening penetrates the fabric of one's being, not just as a fleeting insight, but as an abiding shift in perception. 3.2. Characteristics. Non-dual experience, subject and object dissolve. The practitioner perceives reality as a seamless whole. Transformation of conduct, compassion, wisdom, and fearlessness naturally arise. Ethical behavior is no longer external discipline but spontaneous expression of realization. stability, and integration, while challenges remain. The practitioner can return to clarity more easily. 3.3 Relation to practice in Zen. Eng might correspond to a more profound kenshu or a maturation of initial satori. In Mabhyana terms, it resembles entering the bodhisattva. Bhimis, the stages where insight and compassion deepen in tandem. 3.4 Potential pitfalls. Even at this level, subtle ego clinging can remain. Teachers emphasize humility and continuous practice, reminding students that great awakening is vast but not yet perfect. For Vian Eng, perfect. Awakening 4.1 Definition: Vian Eng, perfect or complete awakening, is the culmination of the path often identified with Buddhahood itself. It is the total eradication of ignorance and the complete embodiment of wisdom and compassion. 4.2 Characteristics: total freedom, no trace of grasping or aversion remains, all-embracing compassion. The enlightened being lives entirely for the welfare of others without effort or calculation. Unity with reality. The distinction between samsara and nirvana collapses. Every moment is the display of awakening. 4.3 Doctrinal interpretations in Mabhyana Sutras. Vian Eng is described as the realization of Dharmadbhutu, the absolute, reality beyond conceptual elaboration. In Zen, it is seeing one's true nature and becoming Buddha. This is not merely an inner state, but a lived, embodied presence that radiates liberation to others. 5 The dialectic of sudden and gradual, the threefold schema, illustrates the paradox of enlightenment. It is both sudden and gradual. Each stage can be seen as sudden breakthrough to Eng, ongoing deepening Eng, final consummation Vian Eng. Zen literature often warns against clinging to either extreme. Awakening is sudden in its essence, but gradual in its embodiment. This dialectic prevents complacency while encouraging confidence. 6 Comparative perspectives. 6.1 Theravada F. Theravada model of 4 stages parallels this schema as Tueng, non-returner as Jieng, and arahantship as Vian Eng. However, Theravada emphasizes cessation of defilements over metaphysical non-duality. 6.2 Mabhinama. Aona adds the dimension of the bodhisattva vow. Awakening is not merely for oneself, but for all beings. Thus, even great awakening is inseparable from compassion. 6.3 Vajrayanin Tantric Buddhism. The stages of generation and completion practice similarly progress from glimpses of emptiness to Eng to non-dual, union Eng, and ultimately to the realization of the rainbow body or Buddhahood Vian Eng. 7 Psychological and existential dimensions. 7.1 2 Eng cracks in the ego from a psychological perspective. Partial awakening resembles moments when ego structures collapse through meditation, crisis, or mystical experience. These glimpses open new horizons, but can be destabilizing. 7.2 G. Eng, reconfiguration of identity. Great awakening transforms the core sense of self. The practitioner no longer identifies with the separate ego, but with interbeing. This resembles deep psychological integration or self-transcendence. 7.3 Vian Eng, radical, freedom perfect. Awakening transcends psychological categories. It represents a state beyond dualities, sometimes described as the end of psychology, a freedom where being is fully aligned with reality. 8 Implications for practice. 8.1 Encouragement for beginners. the possibility of two end shows, that even brief glimpses matter. Small awakenings encourage perseverance. 8.2 Responsibility of practitionership, Inji, entails not only insight but ethical transformation. Enlightenment without compassion is incomplete. 8.3 The rare jewel of Vianengwile. Vianeng is the ultimate goal. It should not be romanticized. Its value lies in guiding everyday practice, reminding us that each moment of awareness participates in BUDD HAOOD.9 Modern relevance in contemporary life. These stages offer a framework for understanding spiritual growth. To Eng, the first realization that consumerism, ego, and distraction cannot satisfy. G Eng, a radical lifestyle shift living with mindfulness, ethical responsibility, and service. Vian Eng, rare but serves as an inspiration, reminding humanity of its highest potential. The threefold model also prevents disillusionment by recognizing that awakening unfolds in stages. Practitioners can appreciate progress without prematurely claiming final realization. 10 Conclusion: the journey of enlightenment is a spectrum of deepening realization. Tueng, Jieng, and Vianeng captured the unfolding of wisdom from the first glimpse to its ultimate consummation. Partial awakening reveals the possibility of freedom. Great awakening embodies its transformative power, and perfect awakening fulfills the human potential for boundless wisdom and compassion. Far from being abstract categories, these stages mirror our lived experience, brief insights, profound shifts, and the aspiration toward full liberation. They remind us that enlightenment is not distant, but present here and now, accessible through practice, humility, and dedication to the welfare of all beings. Ultimately, the levels of awakening are not separate stages, but facets of the same jewel. Each glimpse of truth already contains the whole. As the Zen saying goes, the first awakening is not the last. The last awakening is the first.